Hello and welcome to the Venda Museum. My name is Jamie Kwan, curator of our current exhibition, one of our current exhibitions, Deconstructing Ideology, the Cultural Revolution and Beyond. I am so pleased that you were able to join us today for this exhibition-related program, Living the Revolution, a panel with Yongyi Song and Hong Cheng. Our speakers today will share their personal experiences of the Cultural Revolution, and their presentations will be followed by a Q&A. So throughout the program, should you have a question, please feel free to submit it in the Q&A box on your screen below. Hong Cheng received his PhD and MA in history and his MLIS in library and information science from UCLA, in addition to a master's and bachelor's in history from Fudan University, China. He's been the Chinese Studies librarian at UCLA since 2005, having previously served as the library director of the Art Institute of California at Los Angeles. He's currently the president of the Council on East Asian Libraries in North America and the president of the Southern California chapter of the Chinese American Librarians Association. With research interests in historical philosophy, modern and contemporary Chinese socio-economic and cultural history, and the theory of library science, he is the author and co-compiler of a number of academic monographs and research papers, including award-winning and peer-reviewed publications. Hong was a junior high student when the Cultural Revolution started in China. After no school for 2 years, he was sent to Heilongjiang in North Manchuria for re-education with schoolmates in 1968. He worked first as a tractor driver and then as a statistician in a state farm for almost 7 years before transferring to a mountainous village in central China. He passed the first national college admission exam in 1977, right after the Cultural Revolution, and became a college student at a prestigious university in his home city of Shanghai. So Hong, welcome to the program, and thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to have an opportunity to talk to everyone here. And first, I want to just introduce a little bit about my life during the Cultural Revolution. And then when Cultural Revolution started, I was just a junior high student or middle school student. And you see a row of photos here. The first one, I was at the beginning of Cultural Revolution. And after 2 years, I was sent to for student re-education in Heilongjiang, the North Manchuria. And during Cultural Revolution, my family suffered quite a lot because my family was an intellectual family. My father was a college teacher and my mother was a medical doctor. So I'm not qualified to join the Red Guards. So in 1968, I was sent to countryside, and the second picture was the time I sent to countryside. And the third picture was I reached 20 years old at the time. And the second picture from the right, when I left Heilongjiang and went to Anhui in central China for countryside. And the last picture on the right, when I passed national college admission exam and to Fudan University as a college student. That's basically my life during the Cultural Revolution. So the following picture showed when I was in Manchuria. At the time in Manchuria, because the area was very close to Soviet Union. At the time, the China and the Soviet Union, Russia is at a stage of war in 1968 and later. So during that time, the area where I work, the state farm, did not have political campaign. So basically, more normal life there, not like in major cities. So I was a tractor driver, started with assistant. And the photo at the left is with my fellow workers there. And they are all students from different parts of the country. And from Shanghai, Beijing, Harbin, Qiqihar, those are two cities in Manchuria, in Heilongjiang. So this is the photo. And the right one is at the time we are doing farm work in the field. You know, I have to mention that don't think this is quite normal for all the students in the countryside, because the area I went was a more developed area. The state farm was actually established right after World War II. So when we went there, it's over 20 years. So it's more developed. Not all the area look like that. And this is basically what we are doing here. At the time, look, people say, oh, you're a tractor driver. Look so exciting. Look like that. But actually, at the time, if during busy seasons, we work 14 hours a day, like 12 hours if for the daytime, or switch shift, work at night for 12 hours. And in between, we have 1 hour to like take care of the tractor or do a lot of other kind of things. So quite a long time. I remember at the time, after work, we just go sleep. And when we wake up, I go to work again, every day like that. And also, at night, we almost cannot sleep all the time, because we usually, one tractor has two drivers. One is our master, the more senior driver, but usually they had a family. So as assistant, we drive all night, never stopped. So it's a very hard work. It's not just look like the photo shows, it looks so exciting. And besides field work, some other students, they work in the farm. And the left one, you can see they are making fertilizer. This on the background, you see some housing there. That's the dorms we live. And the two pictures at the right side, as they are doing some kind of, you know, survey in the field, find out if insects or anything. And the lower picture, two girls, one from Shanghai and one from Beijing. And I really don't know where they are now. But on the top picture, the left one, that's the person is from Shanghai. And a couple years ago, I tried to find him, but I heard he got asthma disease, so he cannot remember a lot of things at a very difficult situation right now.
Hong, sorry to interrupt, but there's something with the display of your slides. Do you think I think you're currently in presenter view. Could you just exit the slideshow and restart, or by hitting play from current slide, just so we can get a full view of the fantastic pictures you're sharing, because we could see the notes and the images are much smaller.
Okay, so I can I try to switch another show. Is can you see that? This one?
Yes.
Is it better?
That works too. If you want to just scroll down.
This is the first one I showed, and then the field work, and the third one, other works at the farm. It showed that how my how to say fellow student at the time they work in the state farm. And then I will show after hours what we are doing. And the far left picture showed some kind of military training. At that time, because it's so close to Soviet Union, all the youth need to take a military training. However, at that time was a big shock to me because the State Farm, the leader told me I cannot take any military training because some family issue there. I never know my great grandfather, actually great grandfather, was the first merchant, Chinese merchant in China who did foreign currency exchange in 1850s, but they dig out from my history. And they also told me my grandfather was the owner of the largest private bank in China. They call Tianzhuang, but I never know this part of history. However, because my grandfather passed when my father passed away when my father only 8 years old. So it's really, really long time ago. But at that time, it's really did affect your life. So I even cannot have military training. So this picture is just I take from with my also roommate and just for fun. And the second picture, I was in Jiamusi, a city. At the time, I was sent to a newspaper for publish an article. That was the first article I published. Even it's not an academic article. It's just on how to repair tractors. Very interesting, yeah. The third one is sport games. That's the only one we had in the whole time in Heilongjiang. So it was fun, but it's really not a common life there. And people always ask, because after went to countryside, I got admitted to college. Did you have a chance to learn something there? What to say? If you see the picture, yes, we are learning there. However, very much this is just for taking picture, and we don't really have opportunity to learning. However, in my place in our team, we did build up a small library. Actually, I personally built up that. We donate books you brought to the countryside, and we also get some books from some, government official from major cities where we come from, and they give some gift books, and we built up a small library. And anyone, if you want to read the books, you can borrow. And the right side is a photo. Actually, all these we are roommates from same room. And you will see the far right one, actually, he's my in the same tract with me, but however, he's passed away actually for a few years, because after come back to cities, after Cultural Revolution, a lot of people get a very poor health. And the last one, I want to show some picture where I left the countryside. And the one, the bigger one was when I left Heilongjiang in 1975. And those people, why I show these people, on the last slides, I already showed one of my roommates passed away. And in these pictures, the second row, the far left one also passed away because of poor health. And in general, some people here, like 5 people are from Beijing, and I'm only one from Shanghai. And from major cities, actually getting better life later. For example, the first row, the far right person was my closest friend. He became like a land measure ever in Ningxia with his family at the time was there. And he just worked very hard and raised up and up. Finally, before his retirement a few years ago, he was the very high official in China's National Land Survey Bureau. It's quite a high position already. And then the top right picture, after I left Heilongjiang, I went to Anhui in a mountainous village. Why I go to there? Because my family consider Heilongjiang the weather is too cold, and wish I can come to a southern part of the country. So I went there in 1975. However, after a couple of years, I get the opportunity to take the national college exam, and I pass the exam and get admitted to the Fudan University. The lower picture is in Fudan University when we just entered the college. However, people say, okay, it looks not too bad, your life during countryside. However, I have to say, of all the students, is very few students have the opportunity to go to college. In the same work team of State Farm, we have about 200 students. Only about 5 get a chance to go to college. And I was the only one have opportunities study abroad, become overseas student. So very rare. And also from the picture, we can also tell the real difference make is education. Actually, doesn't matter if you go to countryside during the time, if you, after Cultural Revolution, if you have opportunity to enter college, receive college education, you seems have better future. But however, if you don't have the opportunity, a lot of my classmates, they lost their job, they work very hard, even came back to city, but cannot make their living. That is a big difference. So I just want to share some of my life, and if any question, please ask later. Thank you.
Hong, thank you so much for sharing those amazing pictures and your own experience. I myself already have many questions, but that will have to wait until later. But thank you again. Our second speaker, Yongyi Song, is a professor emeritus at California State University, Los Angeles. His publications include the Cultural Revolution Database, the Historical Dictionary of the Cultural Revolution, the Cultural Revolution in Heterodox Thoughts, and the Cultural Revolution, a bibliography, 1966 to 1996. As a native of Shanghai, China, he was twice jailed by the Chinese authorities, once during the Cultural Revolution for organizing an underground reading club, and again in 1999 for collecting primary sources on the revolution. He has long devoted himself to preserving the true history of contemporary China, especially the Cultural Revolution, and combating government censorship through his myriad publications. He's the recipient of the American Library Association 2005 Paul Howard Award for Courage, California Library Association's 2011 Zoya Horn Intellectual Freedom Award, and the winner of the 21st Century Librarian National Award by the School of Information Studies of Syracuse University in 2004. Yongyi, thank you so much for joining us today. Oh, you please remember to unmute. Yongyi,
Here,
there we go. Now
share
you're
the screen.
Yes, share screen.
Yeah, you can see the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's fine. Okay. Thank you very much for the introduction. Hello everyone. I like to share my story. Just like Chen Hong just said, all of us during the Cultural Revolution actually passed a very hard journey. My journey have some special. I named that from Mao's support to his enemy. So I think most of us have the same situation. Okay, let me see. I could change that. Okay, go to next. So here I like to use anonymous French philosophers' words to describe or awaken journey during the Cultural Revolution. I don't want to repeat that. Basically, he said, if the person is young, so if he did not believe communism once, maybe don't have basic passion after greatness. But if the person still believe communism when he reach age of 30 years old, he has no brain because he may not have hope to be mature. So I think this one is basically it's a description of our awakened journey, what we pass. Go to my family background. Just like Hong said, our family background is not that good because we are not read family. Actually, our father is a manager of a small department store. Basically, should not be treated as our enemy. But in communist China, they always expanded the enemy list. So a member of the middle class, like my father, actually treated of one of Black 7 categories. So Black 7 categories is anti-rights and anti-revolutionary, landlord, rich peasants, plus something like, the capitalist aging. My father is not the owner of the department store, but you are manager. Also, you could see, here is my father, here's my mother. This picture was taken 1948. I was not born yet. I was born in 1949. So when I say that we used to be a Mao's support, then people maybe wonder, you are the son of Black 7 categories, but why you support the Mao's Cultural Revolution? One thing, it's simple, because when we get education, we actually get a long time brainwash. So we support the Mao's Cultural Revolution. Like me, it's really support. It's not say I prevent a support, actually I'm not a support. You could see this is the picture on November 25, 1966. I went to Beijing to see Chairman Mao. So even though I don't have the read God, I'm bad, but I do look like I read God. So actually, I was received by Mao in the last time. Here I want to talk about another reason why I support the Mao's revolution. So people should understand, on the paper, in the writing, Mao's revolution always find a very good excuse. Those are fake, but very attractive to young people, young students. For instance, here, I just read the one, say government officials should be elected by all the people. People have the right to dismiss them and repress them anytime. This is 1966, August 8, in Mao's 16 point. It's a guidance document for the revolution. But until now, this is still underwritten, never practiced in China. It's our dream. So that's why we are easy to read those documents. We believe what Mao say. So what caused us to change our mind? I think it's 1967 to 1968. we read some forbidden book, just like Liang Heng and Julia Shapiro in a famous book, Son of the Revolution, said, the more I read, the more I compare the society they describe with the one in which I live, and the more confused I become. Here is 1968 picture. I read those books in the home, near my home, public park. What gave me most, influence is I read the book written by the American journalist William Shire. The book title is The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, a history of Nazi Germany. So basically, when I and my classmates read this book, we compare the Nazi Germany for Maoist China. We find so many, similarities. For instance, the personality cult. Both Hitler and Mao strongly promote that. So this kind of book, it's become or awakened turning point. Just like Hong said, even though in remote countryside, in those stay form, the young people still try to establish their own library, try to seek the truth. I'm staying in the city. I was not sent to the countryside. Fortunately, find the job. Actually, is the government sent us to the factory, so give us more freedom to find those books, or we should say forgotten books. Because of the reading, because after read, we experience some concern. So then I was arrested in 1971 by the authority under the charge of organizing anti-revolutionary reading group. I was put in prison for 5 years, 1971 to 1976. So inside the jail, the only book I could read is the Marx, Lenin, and the Mao's work. But very interesting, very interesting. The more I learned the Marxism, the more I doubt the Maoism. The deeper I study Marxism, the quicker I start to doubt it too. So basically, it's a very interesting. So people always say it's a prison life gave you better education. It's true, but it's very painful. For instance, there is a couple of points when I reading Marxism book. Marxism believe the evil passion is a human nature. How do they expect imperfect human being could build up a perfect communist world? This question I cannot solve, but lead me to greatly doubt for the Marxism. For instance, also talk about, we noticed that on one hand, Mao said a couple of times he is not favored personality cult, but in the reality, he promotes his personality code very hard. So those kind of comparison, it's always make young people thought about the Cultural Revolution. So basically, what is the Cultural Revolution? Here I give 3 sentences. One is starting type of great future. Another is anti-culture and civilization catastrophe. The third one is the Chinese Holocaust, because so many people, based upon all research, at least 3 million innocent people was died in Cultural Revolution. This number is not very big compared with the Great Famine, but another number is very big. How many people during the Cultural Revolution, or how many families during the Cultural Revolution was suffered by the political campaign. Actually, their statistics show us China at that time about 6 billion. Half of the people was suffered during the Cultural Revolution. So that's why make the young generation, it's they have the condition to awaken. So for me, the very interesting experience is not only during the Cultural Revolution, I was jailed by Chinese society. My second present experience is for the research on the Cultural Revolution. I was in United States and finished my work and become a faculty member in Dickinson College. I think I have interest in research on Cultural Revolution. What I do is August 7, 1999 to January 29, 2000. I was arrested by Chinese KGB. What I do is my research trip. On the left side, you could see those newspapers, tablets, leaf flyers published by mass organization. I just try to edit them, get reprint, republish it, but this one Chinese authority think it's you still stay secret. Finally, on the evening of January 29, 2000, I made my safe return home, rescued by US government and the US academia. You can see here is I go back home. Here is Dickinson College hold a big conference, welcome me to home. So this is basically my experience. We could simply say from jail to jail. So during the Cultural Revolution, I was put in jail because I have concern to the Cultural Revolution. After I became a scholar in the US, I studied Cultural Revolution, make research trip in China. I was arrested by them too. So it's very interesting. It's a jail to jail. But this one did not stop my research. On the left side, you could see the Dictionary of Cultural Revolution published in 2004. On the right side, you could see the Cultural Revolution database, anti-racist database, what I write, what I compared. So China now, it's China on the road of Mao without Mao. So everybody, I think it's already know that. So why is China still under Mao's shadow? I think at least two reasons. One is Mao was symbol of the legacy of revolutionary since he was a founder of the CCP and the PRC. Second is Mao is not only a big dictator, but is also utopianist, or you could say it's a great dictator as well as a great utopianist, attractive populist, and extreme nationalists. Those are still attractive to the young people in China. So I think that's my presentation. If you have any questions, please ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Yongyi, for that presentation. It was so interesting to learn about your experience. For me particularly, also about the underground reading clubs. So as a reminder, we will be starting our Q&A. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. But in the meantime, I have a question for both of you, Hong and Yongyi. So both of you, books played such a huge role in your life. Hong, you were building a library in the countryside, and Yongyi, your sort of political awakening occurred due to reading. Could you speak about how these experiences with books and education led you to your current careers as historians and librarians?
Probably I say something first.
Oh, and sorry, just to jump in, Yongyi, could you end the screen share? Sorry about that.
Oh, you want me to close the screen share, right?
Yes, close the screen share.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hong, please go ahead.
This is, I think, really not related to my librarian life here, because library is always my personal favorite. Even when I was a kid, I have my home library, partially because I was born in an intellectual family. And also, at the time, the people went to same side, more countryside, the state farm. Most people, say more or less, brought some books there. We just share those books. On the other hand, I already mentioned, because the area I went is quite close to Russia, Soviet Union. So there is not very much in political campaigns there. So kind of have some kind of freedom. You can share books. Of course, those books that we have, nothing really offending the regime, nothing politically involved. Basically, some books are probably, they said, it's not allowed openly in the market in big major cities. However, people really don't care much what we can have. So this is how we can build up a small library. However, the small library only about, I think, less than 2,000 books. Really, really tiny.
What about
Okay,
you?
I say something. I think from what I said and what I Hong said, you could see even the darker period during the Cultural Revolution. Every young people, they still very strongly to seek freedom, seek knowledge. That's why we like to read the book. The book is different from home in the countryside and from me in the bigger city. Because as I say, that fortunately, after I graduated, I was sent to the factory. So I still keep the group of my classmates with me. We have more freedom. So among us, among all the, us, a couple of my classmates, they come from high-ranking officers' family, even though their fathers, their mothers have trouble that time. But they do have so many forbidden books in their home. Those books during the Cultural Revolution, because their mother, their father was put in prison. Yet on contrary, gave them more freedom to bring those books, spread among the friends, among the students. So that's the benefits, the advantage for us stay in the big city. So we could read those forgotten books. Those books, it's really the highest effective education to us because we never have chance to read those. Another thing people should know during the Cultural Revolution, all high school, all university, it's closed. Until 1971, the university partially open. The high school actually is never open. So we don't have anything to read. If the time we could read those forbidden books, that's read very carefully, very concentrate. Let me give you one example. As I say that the book we read, the Third Life, right? Even one of our group people, he is, the chair professor in Cornell University right now. I don't mention his name. He's very famous in China study. He just tried to write down every chapter, every chapter's summary. So because the book is sometimes only could give you 2 days to read, then you need to pass to another person. So how to remember that? One of my friends, as I say, that he is a chairperson in Cornell University, he just very quickly write down all the summary. In this way, could distribute to summary to more classmates. They could read that. So basically, wherever you in countryside, wherever in your bigger cities, the reading movement is sure the young spirit, they towards to seek the freedom, seek the knowledge in the darkest period in China.
So to follow up on this underground reading movement, so books were clearly so important and those were circulated. What about other cultural material such as music or works of art? I'm very curious about that element.
Oh, please. Oh,
Yeah. Actually, in countryside, there are very little cultural like event, entertainment, that kind of thing. But we do see movies because it's a state farm, and usually is the typical movies a lot to show in China. However, some students, they play music, violin or something. Of course, no piano, but and also some Chinese instrument. They also students like to sing together, and some songs are really forbidden in other places. For example, they sing some song like Song Jiang. That's the sound when during the World War II, when people left the home because Japanese invasion in Manchuria. They use this song to think of their home because all the youth, all the students, they left their home too, and they cry together. But this kind of thing, actually, no one really care much because in countryside, especially in remote area, the party control is not as strong as in major cities.
Okay, let me say something because fortunately or unfortunately, during the Cultural Revolution, I did not, by government, send to the countryside, stay in the bigger city, Shanghai. Actually, Hong and me come from the same city, China's biggest city, Shanghai. So I'm not a musician, I'm not an artist, but I do hear some my classmates or some my colleagues during the Cultural Revolution, they still practice their music, talent, or they practice their art talent. For instance, one person, I'm not sure whom you know, one of my schoolmates' name is Liu Yulian. I'm not sure you know. He, after the Cultural Revolution, he passed the national test to go to the Central Art College, 中央美术学院. He's actually his production get the national award. It's about some, I think it's about the Heilongjiang's life. But what he do, he continued to prove his art skill, especially his drawing skill. During the Cultural Revolution, as I mentioned, the Mao provided his personality code. So a lot of the drawing is about a Mao. It's about a Mao's life, Mao's pictures. Mr. Liu is participate all of those movement drawings. During this kind of work, he promote his art style. So actually, it's in very awkward way prepare his art style to pass the national test, go to Beijing, go to the Central Art College. So it's everybody's load. It's painful, but you could see there is still the young spirit, young generation. They try to seek knowledge. They try to seek, the freedom. They prepare themselves for China's bigger move, China's bigger change after the Cultural.
Thank you. So I have a question from the audience related to that. And it goes, was it somehow possible for these young people who were critical towards the regime to secretly connect and discuss ideas, or was being critical a very lonesome and isolated endeavor? So how much interaction did you have with other people who were against the regime?
Oh, please.
So I think in remote area, rural area, actually more isolated from the situation what happened in city. However, as I know, some students at the time they visit a family in major cities, they participate some kind of such a movement. For example, like in Beijing, the April 5th student protection. And I remember Premier Zhou Enlai at the time, some people go to take a flower to the Tiananmen Square. That's the first Tiananmen Square incident. They participate. However, in countryside, it's because we even don't really know much what happened in the countryside, in the whole country. So I don't see any organized movement for that.
Yeah, let me talk about in bigger city, as far as I know, Shanghai. During the Cultural Revolution, especially from 1971 to 1976, in Shanghai, the authority at least, charge about 200 anti-revolutionary, organization or anti-revolutionary group. I don't talk about other things. So for instance, Fudan University, very famous one called the Hu Shoujun Fanggeming Xiaojuan, Hu Shoujun Anti-Revolutionary Group. Basically, it's about 100 college students. They got together, they talk about the Cultural Revolution, they explain their concern towards the Mao's policy and the Cultural Revolution. The finally, about 100 students all put in jail. I talk about my experience, why I was put in jail for 5.5 years. It's 5 of my classmates, because we share the same book. We find we need exchange idea. So every 2 weeks in my home or in others, my classmates' home, after all, finish, we already go to factory work. So afterward, basically it's a Saturday or Sunday evening, we got together, we exchange a book, then we have something common to talk. Even though this is a totally private talk, but during the Cultural Revolution, it's anti-government. They could jail you. If one person they find, actually, it's unfortunately one person found by their neighbor committees called 居民委员会, neighbor committees, they catch him. So then problem is he don't have experience. We all young. It's only 18 years old, 17 years old. He confessed to say, okay, go to Song Yongyi's home or go to other people's home. We said something not good to Jiang Qing or not good to Zhang Chunqiao, or we concerned about mouse policy. Then 5 people all arrested. So that's all experience. So basically during the Cultural Revolution. But as I said, only Shanghai, based upon the material, the government archive, I read about 100 to 200, this kind of students group, including mine, was arrested during the Cultural Revolution. So you could see the underground reading movement, it's true. But sometimes some group do the deep, some group in the surface. Basically, it shows the tendency, the young people seeking freedom, seeking knowledge. That's the tendency, especially for young people. Currently, I think it's the same.
Well, thank you. I have 2 questions from the audience commenting on the photographs that were in your presentation, Hong, and they're really incredible. So the questions are really asking you to speak more about the availability of cameras and the role of photography in the period. So would either of you have comments on that?
Yeah, so the photos, it's not easy to get. You know, actually, really not many photos available. And at the time, they have not at a state farm level. Actually, this state, I say the state, it's a very large. It's right now called the Jiusan, the September 3rd. Farm, they have bigger group about altogether it's close to 400,000 students. So each year they select some students, including some photographers, to go to places to take photos. And they published a book. This book is available in many libraries here, including UCLA, on the called students or youth in countryside in Heilongjiang, and in this book. So those photos, of the photos are 7 is from the farm I went. So I select from those. So this is, I can say, just by chance have some photos. However, some other photos just talk about ourselves and where we get a camera, because some roommates, they love photography and from some kind of well-off family from Beijing or Shanghai, they bring camera to countryside, but always difficult to develop films. And we did, I think, once or twice develop by ourselves, but not very, very successful. So we did got some photos, but really not much.
Thank you.
For me, it's the same. I think based upon my friends and the classmates, their family background. If your family background is rich, you maybe could also purchase a photograph. So one of or 5 people, one person, his father is an engineer. So they have a camera. So that's why we could sometimes make a camera. But as Hong said, at the time, it's very difficult because based upon what you get the money for. I think the camera, it's a couple of 100 renminbi. But a couple of 100 renminbi at the time, it's equal couple of $100 US at the time, the exchange rate. Even sometimes 1 renminbi could change 1.5 US dollar. Of course, we cannot change. All government control the exchange. So if you do have those cameras, you certainly could make picture in your bigger city. Also, during the Cultural Revolution, young people have nothing can do. They eager to learn how to develop those films. So that's why we still have those pictures, even though the qualification is not very good. So I always, if I feel this we need to keep, I always go to some people for help to make sure still could read, still could see. That's the situation.
Thank you. It's very interesting. I have a question for Yongyi, asking you to talk a little bit more about your time in prison and whether it was harder or easier for you as someone against Mao's regime. I guess whether that sustained you or made it a little bit easier to endure.
Yeah, I was in 2 times in Chinese prison. The first time is very hard. It's a very harsh treatment because I'm not come from the United States. I'm not a US citizen. So I was beaten, I was tortured, everything you imagine happened to me. I was very young, it's only 18 years old. So the Cultural Revolution, we always say 10 years. I spent 5.5 years in prison. So that's very hard. Second time, when I was a US faculty member, I went to China to do the research. They arrested me, it's only 6 months. It's not 6 years. Treated me very well. So I should say they not physically abuse me, beat me. What they do is only mental. For instance, they not only arrested me, also arrested my wife. My wife still spent 3 months in the prison. Then they find her nothing related to my research, then release him. So sometimes, you know, the Chinese government treat their own people, or they treat the US citizen, or they treat the same ethnic people or different. For instance, if the person is from US, also is Anglo-Saxon. So people maybe treat much more nice than the people same to them. So the dictators always do that.
Thank you. So I have a question. I have a question for Hong. Were there any challenges to your education, and I guess as you know, after the Cultural Revolution, and what was your motivation for getting through university?
You know, I always dream. However, I change a lot because originally I want to be someone in science or technology, but finally I get into you know, history major. The reason is that I already mentioned my father was a college teacher actually in mathematics. So I'm very good in mathematics at the time. So for the college admission, the first college admission exam in 1977, so I did very well in mathematics. However, you know, because I'm only middle school student, I never get a chance go to high school. So for physics and chemistry, it's so hard to me. So I, because I like reading, so history and geography is better to me. So I switch to get, you know, for history major. And actually I did quite well. And in the city, I took in Anhui, and I actually reached #1 in school. So this is why I get the prestigious university in Shanghai, Fudan University. However, this is just personal experience. It's not common. Otherwise, I think I wouldn't have chance to talk here because most of my classmates, if they are in China, some retired, some also have difficult time in their life. So it's not a typical, I have to admit. I was lucky enough.
And I have one final question before we wrap up this panel for both of you. And we have one, sorry, let me just pull it up. And we have one attendee asking about Mao's 16 points and whether they are still followed during the present day as a way of guiding life in China. So what is the afterlife of these?
Oh, okay. Let me answer that question. Mao's 16 points is only the very specific guidance for the Cultural Revolution. It certainly is not for right now. So even though Mao issued this important guidance documentation, but Mao never obeyed that. As I said, 16 points, very important issue is all the government officials should be elected, freely elected by the people. Look at China right now. Where is free election? There is never free election. Also, after only a couple of months, Mao said publicly, say the election is not good. Election is a capitalist thing. I personally never believed the election, only believed the revolutionary dictatorship. So when I heard at the time, when I heard about Mao say that, for me, it's very disappointing. But all the communists, either Mao and Xi, what they do and what they say is totally different. This is the big lesson, what we got.
Yes, I think the 16 points are very specific, tied at Liu Shaoqi at the time. And we don't look what written on paper at that time. We should see what behind what the policies they actually have. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Great. So I think we are out of time for today, but I want to thank both of you again for participating in this panel. It has really been so interesting learning more about your experience during the Cultural Revolution. And I think hearing these oral histories, such as yours, really enriches our understanding of the past and brings it to life for us today. So just as a reminder, before we go, the Venda will be hosting a film screening of the Cultural Revolution model ballet, The White-Haired Girl, this Sunday at 5 p.m. And in the new year, we will have an online artist talk with Zhang Hongtu on January 11th, an online presentation by Lian Xi on Christianity under Mao and the political martyr Lin Zhao on February 1st, and an in-person panel on Chinese international relations and international Maoism on March 5th. So to learn more about these programs, and to sign up, please visit our website, www.vendamuseum.org. I want to thank our panelists again, and I want to thank everyone for joining us, for joining this program today, and I hope to see you soon at our future programs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.